Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service, jbiztechphilly.com, and as you can see here, now columnist for the Jewish Press.
Yep, I'm having fun doing all of that, and my column in the Jewish Press is called Albany Beat, and I talk about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be. Well, with us today, we have a very special guest, Evan Goldberg. He's president of the New York State Trial Lawyers Association. So welcome to the Jewish View.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, it's not so odd that someone Jewish would also be an attorney, but tell us what a trial lawyer does. You're not the ambulance chasers, right?
Well, that's...
I know I start off like that.
That's a term that's actually quite offensive.
It is, okay. Well, that's why I bring it up.
The New York State Trial Lawyers Association has been in existence since 1953, and we work every day to promote a safer and healthier society. We have dedicated, well-trained, skilled lawyers who safeguard the constitutional right to a trial by jury.
You'll understand, I joke a lot, okay? So I say what I think. So I didn't mean to offend, it was just one of those things that just happen.
I understand. That is an unfortunate term because it does do a disservice to the thousands of personal injury attorneys throughout the nation who work tirelessly to safeguard people's rights, to correct injustice, to improve society and safety through lawsuits, through preventative measures. The New York State Trial Lawyers, we represent the little guy. The people who are injured through automobile negligence, through medical malpractice,
right.
Through unsafe work sites, defective products. They go against corporate America, and we see all the time that corporate America prioritizes profit over safety, and safety never even hits the agenda, unfortunately, a lot of times. And it's our job to stand up for those people when an injury occurs.
I wanted to ask, that, I do agree with you, and I've heard many lawyers just saying that they uphold the rights of the citizens, that's good. But just being like Mark, a little bit on the other side of it, sometimes you hear that if a fast food restaurant, someone spills hot coffee on them, they get $2 million. So that makes, saying, what are these guys out for?
Would that be someone, a trial lawyer would take on a case like that? Or are there other types?
That is a personal injury case, but it's that McDonald's case, which is what you're talking about,
right,
has done a tremendous disservice to our cause, because people think just what you said, that people spill a cup of coffee on themselves and are getting $2 million. In fact, there was a whole documentary on it that exposed the truth behind that case, and the truth was that McDonald's had temperatures well beyond what was safe. They had hundreds of warnings about the unsafe temperature of their product. And when this woman got burned, unfortunately, it caused third-degree burns to her perineum, her vaginal area.
Oh.
It was horrible. She had skin grafting. It was tremendously painful. They went to trial, and the jury heard that that McDonald's was not going to change their practices, even though they knew it was unsafe. And the jury, in awarding the high level of damages that you said, were equating it with 1 day of coffee profits for McDonald's in the country. They were trying to teach a message. And that case got appealed.
Yes.
And during the appeal, the case settled for a much lesser sum, but it was something that was done in agreement with both parties. So the system worked. It's not an indictment of the system. In fact, it actually works. And now people know about hot coffee.
Yes, they do.
There are warnings on it. The truth is, you can get very, very serious injuries from burns, and there was no need for that coffee to be sold.
And it's not just coffee. I mean, it's not just McDonald's. There's every fast food, every place now has contents may be hot, even if it's an apple pie or something.
Well,
they have these warnings. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Trial lawyers have been at the forefront of safety and warnings from the get-go.
Okay.
The reason there are airbags, the reason there are seatbelts in cars, the reason there are guards on machinery, the reason that your microwave turns off when you open the door is because trial lawyers are out there to hold people accountable if there is going to be an injury from a product or some sort of bad practice. And in fact, we see it not only with bad products, but we see it also with with bad practices, such with medical practice.
I looked up trial lawyer when I was doing some prep work for this interview, and it just came up, what the word trial meant and what the word lawyer meant. There's not really a phrase in the lexicon that is trial lawyer.
Well, I'll tell you what trial lawyer means to me,
So,
because I'm a third generation
Oh,
trial
right,
lawyer.
okay.
My grandfather was a trial lawyer.
Yeah,
My
your
father was a
father?
trial lawyer before he became a Supreme Court justice in New York State. And to me, a trial lawyer is a person willing to go into a courtroom, into an unfamiliar place, and do battle against powerful forces to plead the case of the little guy and to seek justice. And it's consistent with all the proverbs: seek justice and take up the cause of the fatherless, take the case of the widow. This is something that the trial lawyer does. We take cases and we change policy. We change the country. We promote safety. We create safer standards.
I was wondering who did all that. That's you guys.
We create safe standards.
Okay.
We hold people accountable.
Yes.
It's the truth is that nobody really cares, unfortunately, about safe standards until they need them.
Well,
That's the problem.
You talk about safe standards, I think of Ralph Nader
Well, Ralph Nader was
as an icon of
was
that.
instrumental in
yeah.
the very beginning. I mean, he really was at the forefront of product liability law. Unsafe at any speed. Remember the Ford Pinto, where the Ford was revealed that they would rather have a number of deaths because of an exploding gas tank, General Motors, rather than change the design of the product. And so it was a cost-benefit analysis, and the trial lawyer stands up and says that's unacceptable. There are real lives at stake,
Right.
which shouldn't be on your profit-loss balance sheet.
That's what you were saying about the McDonald's case. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I am a rabbi, so I have to deal with rabbinic law. But really, it's the same idea that some people say, that isn't a right. A rabbi, something happened, and I say, you got to look at the full situation before you jump to conclusions.
Sure.
You like, say with the McDonald's, you hear $2 million for a cup of coffee, you hear craziness. But, once you hear the explanation for it, the full idea, then it makes perfect sense. And just why I say it's really, a lot of people jump on Judaism for that also, look at the full situation.
This
and
is
then
why
it
I
comes
ask
into
my
more.
questions the way they are. It's, but I just wanted to ask you.
Yeah, can I just follow up
sure.
on this for a second?
Yeah.
This is a very important point, because everybody reads headlines and
Right,
they
right.
read about all these verdicts,
Right.
and people come to my office, they think they're getting millions of dollars just for anything, but the truth of the matter is they're not. And the case has to be worth it, and if a jury were to come up with a verdict that's unjustified or unwarranted, there is an appellate process. Appellate courts sit in judgment of those verdicts. But it is a real problem that people have a skewed understanding because of what's covered in the press. And you don't read about all the cases that are lost. You don't read about all the cases that are reversed on appeal,
Right.
because they're not interesting. They're not newsworthy. So it's something
Well,
that's
they're newsworthy, just not interesting.
well, I don't see a lot of reversals in the news.
No,
those
but,
big
but that's where the direction I take is that if I see the pack of reporters going this way, I'll go this way, and I'll cover those types of stories that really won't be covered everywhere else.
But the point I also want to make is that even in those cases where you see a verdict that sounds to somebody to be unfair or outlandish, what we have to remember is that live by the sword, die by the sword.
Yeah.
We have a jury system.
Right.
We have jurors who sacrificed days, weeks, months to come. They gave up their jobs. They gave up their time. Not voluntarily. They got a summons in the mail. Let's be fair.
And
They
do
didn't volunteer, but they came and they served.
Yeah.
They did their civic duty
Right.
as citizens. And they come and they listen to all the evidence. They look at all the documents, cross-examination, direct examination, summations, openings. They come up with a verdict after hours and hours and hours of presentation of proof. And then there's a headline, and people's minds are made up by 5 words. And they're saying that's a crazy jury. Well, they're the ones who are charged with the responsibility
Right.
of coming up with what's right in that case.
Well, again, just like I know also, it's just like so many details determine things, just not, nothing is that simple. like you say, after it takes months, or like in Gomorrah, it takes so many hours of discussion, and then you see the bottom line in 3 words. So, oh, now I know everything about it.
Right.
3 words. It took hours to
Well,
figure this out.
with the Gomorrah, you have this rabbi saying this, and this interpretation of that, and this interpretation of that. By the time you get through with the 5th interpretation, you forgot what the first one was.
Well,
So
you got to keep
gotta-
it all
you gotta
together.
get it all
That's
together
what
somehow.
the cue is.
But anyway, that's you can't have a short attention span and read the Gomorrah or study the Gomorrah. Your father, you mentioned your father, a
Yes.
state Supreme Court judge. What was his name?
His name is Richard Goldberg. He's passed away now about 13 years. He's served on the bench for about close to 25 years.
Which district?
In Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
In Kings County.
I grew up in Mill Basin, so.
I grew up in Brighton Beach. and
Were
she
you
said
there in
that-
front of
Okay.
his trial lawyer over
So
there?
they-
Maybe you were a criminal lawyer, Martin.
I think everybody's from Brooklyn.
Well, 1/5 of the country, I think, has roots to Brooklyn, you know.
Right.
So, but now you know where I get my snarky attitude from, is because I'm from Brooklyn.
Well, now you know how I respond.
That's true. So if someone needed a trial lawyer, I mean, it's not listed in the yellow pages under trial lawyers, is it? It would be under personal injury lawyers, or what? Yeah.
Yes, I would say for what we do, for what the New York State Trial Lawyers does, it would be listed as a personal injury lawyer or an accident lawyer, or
Okay.
a product liability lawyer, or a medical malpractice lawyer, or a construction lawyer.
But never trial lawyers.
Well, trial lawyer is,
So that's why I wonder.
well, you can have trials in any kind of law.
That's
You can
right.
have trials in matrimonial law, you can have trials in criminal law.
Exactly.
Right?
So I'm thinking Trial Lawyers Association. So I'm figuring, okay, it's every attorney
We
is.
got there first.
That's actually a very practical issue. What if someone is injured and saying, hey, I think I have a lawsuit, and they don't have a family lawyer? Would they go to your association and you think, hey, you live in
Absolutely.
Albany, here's somebody for you?
Well, you
that's-
wouldn't recommend anyone. You would just give them a list of several names, or.
Well, I would refer them to our website
Yeah.
with our membership directory, our board of directors. There are plenty of.
'Cause a lot of people
There-
have
there's
No shortage
no
of-
shortage of attorneys to find. But you know what? It's my father told me when I was in law school and I was worried about getting a job. He said, "Yeah, look, there are a lot of lawyers. There's always room for a good one."
That's
so,
right.
that's what people have to seek out because unfortunately, when people get hurt, they'll hire the first lawyer
Right.
that comes across their path.
Right.
People need to realize they need to take a step back. In most cases, the statute of limitations is 3 years in a negligence case or 2.5 years for a medical malpractice case. You don't have to make an immediate decision. Do your research, talk to people, get recommendations, and get a good lawyer.
So you're with the New York City firm Trollman, Glazer, and Lichtman.
Yes.
Okay, that's 3 good Jewish names. Are they all with the firm? I mean, because sometimes, like Martin Harding and Mazzotti, there's no Martin anymore, so.
Our 2 of the 3 founding members have retired.
Oh, they have, okay.
I wanted to ask you
yeah.
about on your note, statute of limitations, because it's a major issue presently now, is just that about children's sex abuse. And they say that once a child is 20, well, now they're not going to be a child, they're 23 years old, that there's a statute of limitations on that. And I know a lot of people are lobbying the, you know about this case? I mean,
Oh, sure.
so you see that's unfair. Which way do you come down on it? They want to stop it, but,
Should New York lift its statute of limitations
Well,
on child sex abuse?
The New York State Trial Lawyers has not weighed in yet on the legislation.
Can you talk
Where-
personally about it, or you're not really?
I mean, I personally and the New York State Trial Lawyers
Right.
stand for accountability.
Right.
We are mostly in favor of anything that takes out roadblocks, that gets people before the courts, that holds them accountable, and holds conduct up to the light of day for all to see. So, statutes of limitations are necessary, but very often they're applied unfairly. There are many different circumstances. For instance, in the date of discovery statute that we're seeking to amend in Lavern's law.
Yeah, that's
in
what was the
medical-
next thing I was
in
gonna
medical
ask you about.
malpractice.
could you explain that?
Lavern's law.
I never heard of that one.
Well, we call it Lavern's law. It's not a law yet, of course. We hope it will be. It's a bill to change the statute of limitations in medical malpractice cases for circumstances where the injury was not discoverable by the person who was injured. In Laverne Wilkinson's case, she had a mammogram. Somebody took the report of that mammogram, didn't read it or put it in a drawer, didn't disclose that it was it was positive for cancer. By the time that she did find out, it was too late. Not only was it too late for her to live, to get successful treatment, but it was also too late for her to bring a lawsuit.
Well, how many years would be the law?
Well, this is the ironic part. The American Medical Association suggests that you return every 3 years for a mammogram, but the statute of limitations is 2.5 years. So if you follow the guidelines and come for the next mammogram and it's found out that the first one was misread, you're already too late. So you've lost a case you never knew you had. And 44 states have fixed that with a law saying that the statute of limitations under those circumstances will run from the date you should have known about the malpractice, not from the treatment itself.
Which is date of discovery.
Date of discovery.
Right.
So
Excellent.
it passed the assembly last year. The governor said he would support it, and we're hoping this year that it'll get to a vote.
And Lavern has since passed away.
Yes, yes. And unfortunately, she had 3 children, one with special needs,
Right.
requiring lifelong care, and it's just a terrible tragedy.
You know,
There's no accountability, and they become public charges.
The Daily News made a big deal about Lavern's law. They made a big deal recently about the child sex abuse cases, but the other newspapers around the state, they really don't make as big a deal as the Daily News. What's with their editorial board? What's with their report assignments? Do they have a bunch of trial lawyers there that like to pump up the headlines? I mean, what?
I suppose you'd have to ask them that.
You don't know of anything, but you don't.
I don't know why the Daily News chose to cover the stories.
No,
that they covered.
but it just seems like
Well, I mean-
these are the types. It seems like there's a pattern, and that's all I was asking.
It's
If
not
you,
uncommon for a paper to go with a series of stories once they decide to cover
Yeah.
a topic.
well, that's good for you, I guess. So,
Well, for the Daily News it is.
yeah, no, for you that you get the coverage of these. I mean, not you
well-
personally, you as the general.
That's the thing. People perceive this as a trial lawyer's issue, but what are we doing except fighting for the right to have a lawsuit when a bad thing happens? You see, most people don't care until they are deprived of a lawsuit because they weren't aware of something. Most people wake up and they listen. Nobody says this is a great day to bring a lawsuit. Nobody wakes up and says, you know what, I'm gonna figure out a way to bring a case. Most people never want to go into court. Most people don't want to go to court for any reason. You go there for the worst parts of your life, right? Either you've been arrested, or you're getting divorced, or foreclosure. People don't want to go to court, but when the rights are needed, when the need arises to go to court, and you find out that the law is unjust, it's really hard to take. And I have to tell clients that all the time, not only in situations like this, but also in cases of wrongful death, for the grieving families of people who have been killed, unfortunately. Children, for instance, and elderly people, if they're not earning an income, their lives in the courts of New York State are almost valueless. And it's really an inequity that's existed since 1847. We have the nation's oldest wrongful death statute. Back then, it was the rage. We were the first, but everyone else improved and improved and improved,
Yeah.
and we've still got the first one. And how do you say to a parent of a 10-year-old who was cut down in a crosswalk, mowed down and killed, that their child's life isn't worth anything because they didn't have a paycheck? People are worth more than the paycheck that they bring home.
Right.
I had a situation like that because, Rabbi has so many people to counsel, and I thought there was a medical malpractice. They did really wrong by this person. And I, of course, like Mark says, there's so many Jewish lawyers, and obviously I know many. And I says, well, come on, take up this cause. He says, this person was on welfare. They're not going to give them anything. But they wronged them, and there's children. It says, well, they're, exactly what you said. And, it's interesting. Maybe we should write a book together, compare and contrast Talmudic law and secular law. But just back on that note of statute of limitations, there's no such thing like that in the Talmud or in the Gemara and Jewish law. You hurt someone, well, 5 years later, tough luck. What do you mean? You hurt someone. What does 5 years have to do with anything? Right. You hurt them, you hurt them. You have
Jewish
to pay
law has
off.
no statute of limitations. So that's where you go to the Beis Din and you go to the Jewish rabbinic court. Have you ever?
My mother felt the same way. There was no statute of limitations on anything that I did.
She still
I think
remembers.
every Jewish mother does. Do you? Have you ever been to a Beis Din or represented someone in front of a
Rabbinical
Beis Din?
court.
I've not.
You haven't?
No.
It's a treat. I went through one of those. You should really just for the experience, find someone who's going to a Beis Din and try to represent them in front of three rabbis that are standing in as justices.
I'd love to, Mark.
Yeah,
I'll find the
we
case
go
for you.
there.
I'll give you a call. It's really amazing.
Trial lawyer really eats up experiences, and that's how we're effective in court. When I go to court, when I represent a client, I use all my life experiences to try and convince a jury that this case concerns them.
Yeah.
It's not just an issue about righting a wrong for the individual. It's about upholding standards that they may need themselves as a community. And that's something that I always try to relate to them.
Let me ask you about a namesake law, but it has nothing to do with you, is Evans' law. It has to do with...
Not that Goldberg's law?
No, Evan
won't take credit for
Lieberman.
that one.
It's Evan Lieberman. It has to do with distracted driving.
Right. Well, unfortunately, Evan.
Do you know about this
It's not a
case?
laughing matter. Evan
Yeah.
Lieberman was killed,
19 years old.
and it was
2011.
Unfortunately, it was because of distracted driving, because of texting, apparently.
He was the driver?
No,
I mean,
well,
tell
no,
again,
no.
what's the
He-
story?
He wasn't distracted. It was another
Right.
car who had a distracted driver who hit
Right, he
the
was the
car
victim.
Evan was in, a separate car, and then Evan was the victim, and he had nothing, he was on his way to college and a whole life to live, and, all of a sudden, because someone else was texting and distracted driving on with their cell phone, all of a sudden Evan lost his life.
So what's Evans' law tries to do, again,
Well,
anti-texting?
Well, let me back up for a moment
Yeah,
and just
go
say
ahead.
that the New York State Trial Lawyer is very, very heavily invested in educating the public about the dangers of distracted driving. And these days, distracted driving usually is treated synonymously with texting, but it doesn't have to be texting. It could be eating a sandwich, it could be
Putting on makeup,
fiddling with
shaving,
it could be anything.
Yeah.
Anything at all. Anything that takes your eyes off the road.
adjusting the radio.
Exactly.
There's
And-
everything. Yeah.
And the studies show that the dangers of driving while texting, that you're as impaired as a drunk driver, if not even more. I mean, it's a real danger on the roads. People are getting killed left and right. Joel Feldman, a colleague of ours in Philadelphia, lost his daughter because of it, and he led the charge and spoke with all the different trial organizations throughout the country, and we've all taken, we've made a commitment to try and educate the youth. So a lot of our members will go to the schools and try to tell people, try to educate people that it's really dangerous. Of course it could wait, it's a text, but anything that takes their eyes off the road is very hazardous to safe driving.
And there's a new word that came out of this law called textilizer.
Right, well, Evans' law, basically, there's a new technology apparently where an officer can use, like a breathalyzer, a textilizer, to see if the cell phone or smartphone was being used at the time of an accident. And this is in its infancy. A lot of people are rightfully concerned about any new technology and new
Civil
law.
rights.
Civil rights. Nobody wants anybody looking in their phone records. First Amendment concerns, which is a big deal. But the proponents of this legislation argue that the technology would not reveal the content
Right.
of the text messages or what was being surfed on the web or anything like that. It would reveal whether the phone was being used at the time.
And that's what happens when I go into Verizon wireless store and I give them my cell phone and I ask them, how come I used up all these minutes? They told me, we're going to check your phone, but we're not going to look at, which URLs which websites you went to. We're just going to know if you went to a website and how long you've been on those websites. We won't know which website it is.
Right.
So that was part of, as the phones get more sophisticated, you tend to focus on and be protective of First Amendment rights.
Well, what is Evans' law then? I mean,
Well,
what are they
Evans-
trying to pass?
Well, they're trying to authorize the use of this technology.
Data texting, I mean, text-to-meter,
of the-
whatever
of the
it is.
textilizer. So, I mean, we're all in favor of things that are going to prevent accidents, but we'd have to look at the technology and the concerns by those who are opposed to the bill. It's a new technology, and there are a lot of concerns.
So it says here in this article that it's already illegal in New York for motorists operating a vehicle to hold a cell phone by their ear and talk, text, read, or send email or browse the web.
Yes.
Now, when I might be driving and I have my cell phone, I might put it on, and I might hold it up like this, but I'll turn the,
You're on tape, Mark.
I know. I'll turn the light off.
Well, you
I'm
got a
giving
good
some
lawyer
ideas.
here to protect you over
I'm
here.
turning some, I'm giving some
You have the
people
right to remain
ideas.
silent, by the way.
So, and I'll hold it up like this, and I'll talk on the phone, but usually I'm at a red light when I'm trying to do something like that. I don't usually, but I'm not like this, and I'm looking at something or whatever.
It's like being a little bit pregnant. Yeah.
That's right, exactly.
Do you hang up when the light turns green?
Yes, and I get off, and I put the phone down. I just put it away. Okay. If the light turns green, I just put it in my cup holder or in my console or whatever.
What? All the cars have Bluetooth technology now.
Yeah, I know. Except mine.
It's better not to do that, Mark. It creates hazards.
Yes.
You never know.
Look, I pull up next to someone at a red light, and this woman's putting on makeup, the eyeliner or rouge or whatever, lipstick, and she's checking in the mirror, and it's done, and then the light turns green. She's still checking in the mirror, but she's going, Right. And I'm like, oh. Me, I'll take my battery-operated shaver, and I'll shave while I'm driving, and, hopefully that won't be...
We're always trying to look good, aren't we?
So what other issues are you... you know what I wanted to tell you about? There's this, regarding Evans Law, Celebrite, which is an Israeli company. You know about this?
No.
They're selling software that enables police to do more than what Evans Law would. Their product allows police in the field to check if phones they seize from suspects have been used, and also to extract and decode content from their phones. So there's an Israeli company that's developing that technology, already developed it. So
leave it to the Israelis.
Hey, so what on your website, you have a lot of frequently asked questions. I'm not sure if you looked at them recently or whatever, but what are the common questions that you get from people as you travel around the state, let's say?
Well, I mean, many of the questions that you've asked, what can somebody do to get a good lawyer? What are the safeguards that are needed? Mm-hmm. They might bring up a case that they've read about in the newspapers, and they might want to engage me with the different measures. There's now a movement to try and do away with jury trials. Mandatory forced arbitration is a big issue these days. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And people don't know that they're signing away their rights to a jury trial every time they click an app, every time they send in a coupon for a breakfast cereal, anytime they click on I agree at the bottom of an internet Verizon screen, and it's a very disturbing trend. In fact, there's a woman who broke a hip in a nursing home, and her case was not allowed to go to a jury trial because of the nursing home admission agreement that said that you have to go to arbitration. And arbitration is nowhere near as transparent as a jury trial. It's not going to give you the same chance at justice and equal access to the courts as a jury trial, and it's a trend that's very dangerous.
Can I just ask you in our final minutes, if you have, before he was disbarred, former Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver was a trial lawyer? Was he, or was he under another moniker of an attorney? I wasn't sure.
He had an affiliation with a personal injury law firm.
Okay. That's right, Whites in Luxembourg.
Whites in Luxembourg. I don't know that Speaker Silver ever tried cases. I don't know about his practice.
Have you followed the case at all? Do you have any thoughts about what happened? If you don't, that's fine. I'm just curious.
I've not followed the case to the extent of being able to comment upon it legally. It's a criminal case. That's not my area of expertise. I have my own opinions and interests, of course, as to issues of ethics reform in Albany and so forth. That's something that's always a hot topic in this town. It's not something that the New York State Trial Lawyers regularly weighs in on. That's not our mission. That's not our what we're striving towards.
Right.
We of course want ethics and good government.
Sure.
Because we think that that our cause is entirely consistent with good government, with transparency, with access to justice, with equal rights for all, regardless of socioeconomic status or upbringing. We think that that everybody should get a full and unfettered chance at justice in the courts. So,
So you haven't-
anything that's going to interfere with that, including self-interest or bias, is anathema to what we do. And so, I mean, that's what I'll say.
Do you did you know former Speaker Silver, Sheldon Silver? Did you know him well, or
I didn't know him well, but I did know him.
You know him.
I know him.
Did this like shock you, and you just looked at this and you said it can't be true, or was this like, oh, all right, nothing surprises me anymore? I'm just curious.
Speaker Silver is substantially older than I am. I did not run in the same circles with him. I'm a generation behind
You
him.
ran, he walked. No,
So
okay.
I was not in a position to come to conclusions about anything that he
I know that whenever the State Trial Lawyers Association had their reception, there was always kosher food. There was always a kosher food table. It was always at the Egg, right?
Right.
And I always thought that was one of the first receptions of the year. So I always thought it was because of Shelley.
Well, we have Dove Hiken, right?
That's right. Now you have Dove, and I don't know if he comes or not, but it was always a good spread you put on. So.
Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it.
All right, Lee, it was
Thank
actually
you.
very enlightening talking to you, and I hope for our viewers that they're going to get a little bit more appreciation of trial lawyers, and if
That's
they
right.
need one, well, they can contact your association. So continue the good work you're doing for the community and with good health.
Continued
Robert.
success,
Thank you, Robert.
absolutely.